In January 1979, Phnom Penh crossed a threshold of history. A capital that had been emptied by fear and forced silence watched new columns of soldiers enter the city as the Khmer Rouge fled. On January 7, 1979, Vietnamese forces, advancing alongside Cambodian anti-Khmer Rouge units, took Phnom Penh, an event that marked a decisive turning point in the Cambodian-Vietnamese War and the collapse of a regime responsible for one of the 20th century's worst catastrophes. History 1. To understand why that day came, we have to return 4 years earlier. On April 17, 1975, the Khmer Rouge seized Phnom Penh and established democratic Kampuchea. What followed was an extremist social experiment enforced at gunpoint. Cities emptied, families broken, labor camps replacing normal life, and a system of suspicion where education, religion, and even private memory could be treated as crimes. From 1975 to early 1979, an immense share of Cambodia's population died through execution, forced labor, starvation, and disease. Many major references commonly cite nearly 2 million deaths, with scholarly estimates ranging higher or lower depending on method and source. Bao Tong Tuong Nim Holocaust Hoa Khai too. While Cambodia was being consumed from within, violence also intensified along Vietnam's southwestern border. Relations between the Khmer Rouge and Vietnam deteriorated sharply, and border clashes escalated through 1977 and 1978. One incident became a symbol of the widening conflict: the Ba Chuk massacre in Vietnam's Anh province. From April 18th to April 30th, 1978, Khmer Rouge forces killed 3,157 Vietnamese civilians. For Vietnam, it was not only a horror in itself, it was evidence that the frontier had become an active killing ground, and that the conflict was no longer contained. Wikipedia 3. By late 1978, another element entered the story: Cambodian dissidents opposed to Pol Pot organized politically and militarily.
Yes, but stay close.
On December 2nd, 1978, the Kampuchean United Front for National Salvation was formed, presenting itself as a rallying point to overthrow the Khmer Rouge and rescue the country from genocide. Wikipedia 4. On December 25, 1978, Vietnam launched a full-scale invasion of Cambodia. Numerous accounts describe a large initial force, often estimated around 150,000 troops, driving forward rapidly. In roughly 2 weeks, Khmer Rouge conventional defenses collapsed under a fast-moving offensive, and the leadership withdrew westward as the Vietnamese and allied Cambodian units advanced on the capital. Wikipedia 5. For ordinary Cambodians, those days carried a terrible double edge: fear of war's immediate destruction, and hope that the nightmare of the previous 4 years might finally end. Phnom Penh itself had been hollowed out since 1975, when the Khmer Rouge forced the population into the countryside. Institutions had been dismantled, education and medicine shattered, and the city's rhythms replaced by absence. Bao Tong Tuong Nim Holocaust Hoa Khai too. Then came January 7, 1979. Phnom Penh fell as the Khmer Rouge abandoned the city. For many Cambodians, the date became synonymous with liberation because it marked the end of democratic Kampuchea's rule tied to mass death on an enormous scale. The next day, January 8, 1979, a new pro-Vietnamese state was proclaimed, the People's Republic of Kampuchea, associated with leaders such as Hung Samrin, and tasked with rebuilding a society left devastated and traumatized. Wikipedia 5. But history rarely ends with the capture of a capital. The Khmer Rouge did not vanish. They retreated toward the Thai border and continued as an insurgent force for years. Cambodia entered a long, uneven struggle to recover: fields to replant, families to find, institutions to rebuild, and the national trust to reconstruct after systematic violence. Wikipedia 5. The war also reshaped the region. In 1979, tensions between Vietnam and China erupted into open border war, with the Cambodia conflict deeply entangled in Cold War rivalries. In Cambodia, Vietnamese forces remained for years, withdrawing in 1989, before international diplomacy helped produce the 1991 Paris Peace Accords and a UN-backed transition. Wikipedia 5. So January 7th, 1979 stands as more than a military date. For Vietnam, it was the culmination of a brutal southwestern border conflict in which civilians had been targeted and towns had burned. For Cambodia, it was the moment a genocidal regime collapsed and the possibility of survival reopened for a shattered nation. And for the wider world, it remains a reminder of how quickly ideology can become machinery, how a state can turn violence into policy, and how the shockwaves of that choice can spill across borders, across decades, and into memory itself. Bao Tong Tuong Nim Holocaust Hoa Kai Tu.